Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is Lori from Kid Made Modern. We are here today with our friend Tessa from Studio Jane. I hope some of you maybe have joined us in the past. If not, welcome, welcome, welcome. I will be moderating the class with Tessa today. So if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A and I will can ask Tessa the questions throughout the class. So if you want to share, we always like to see what you guys are working on as well. So make sure to tag at class or Michael's classes and Kid Made Modern, and we will check those out later. So, all right, Tessa, go right ahead.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here today and crafting with us. We are going to be making these fun little holiday trees. So they are made with little found twigs or sticks and some thread pom-poms. We're going to go through the whole supply list and kind of walk through how to make them. So they're a pretty simple little craft today. You can make them in a ton of different ways. There's a lot of different little elements and details you can add that don't have to look just like the ones I made. So we're going to go through the supply list and then we'll get started. So to start, you're going to need some twigs. So I just went and collected a little handful of small little twigs, little tiny branches from the yard. So if you haven't collected any and you want to run outside and see if you can find a few, you need at least like 3 little ones. These are only about like 5 to 6 inches. We're going to glue them together into little triangle shapes to look like a tree. So you can run out and grab a couple if you haven't collected any yet. If you maybe live somewhere that you don't have twigs handy or you didn't have time to gather some ahead of time, you could definitely use like paper straws or wooden craft sticks. You can use something else like that instead that will still work. You could even use like pencils or colored pencils, anything that's going to be thick like this, it's not going to bend when we wrap it will work. And then we're going to also be using embroidery thread. So I have some red and green embroidery thread from our Kid Made Modern Arts and Crafts library. And we've got some little pom-poms here and wooden beads. And I just pulled out my own little color assortment of kind of a red, green, and yellow theme. You can make yours any colors you want. So if you want to make pink or purple or blue trees, you can do that too. And then I have some felt here to do some little adornments, like a little star at the top is made from felt. And then I have some extra yarn if you want to do some thicker options as well. You can just use embroidery thread from the Arts and Crafts library, or you can use some bigger, chunkier yarn like I used on the borders of this one. It's totally up to you. Again, you can use different materials. If you don't have yarn handy, then the embroidery thread is fine. And then lastly, we're going to be using some glue and scissors. So I have my white Kid Made Modern white craft glue here. Also will be using some glue dots. So I have a little roll of glue dots from Michael's. You can definitely use hot glue for this. It's if you're crafting with an adult too. So the hot glue works really well on things like the little twigs, but just the regular craft glue should work for you. It might take a couple moments for it to dry. Or you can use a glue dot. So we'll do a little combination of the two. And I think that's everything you need. So I'm going to flip my camera around so you guys can see what I'm doing and we'll get started. If you have any questions on materials, definitely put them in that Q&A, as Lori said. We can answer those for you. But again, all of these little cute details are from the Kid Made Modern Arts and Crafts library, but you can pick and choose other elements from that as well. So there's obviously sequins and plastic beads as well as wooden beads. You can make your own little adornments instead of using pom-poms. Maybe you want to cut out little shapes from felt or paper. So definitely get creative and make them as however you want to. Okay, so I've got a little samples here. I'm going to move them aside. And to start, we've got all these little twigs here that, again, I just ran outside and gathered some. So you can use as many grab a couple from your yard, and you can use, again, different materials as well. If you want to use something like a paper straw or wooden craft stick, those are going to be handy in most of your craft supplies probably. And to make these, we're going to have to break a couple of our little twigs into smaller sizes to build our little triangle shape. So I'm just going to take 2 twigs. These are both about the same height. You can see one's a little bit longer. but it's going to work. And I'm going to line them up at the top and then kind of spread them out toward the bottom to create a little A shape. And then I'm going to just kind of measure out by holding another twig at the bottom here. And then right where it meets on both ends, I'm just going to take my twig and just kind of snap it right at the end. So that's why if you're looking for twigs, if you've already gathered some, finding some little thin ones like this are going to be the easiest. So you can easily kind of snap them in half. Again, if you have bigger twigs or you're having trouble making yours a little bit smaller, you can definitely just make a bigger version of the little tree as well. And then this little piece that we snapped off at the end, we'll go ahead and use that as our little trunk here. And we're going to glue this together. I'm going to use some just white craft glue here. You can use, again, glue dots or hot glue as well. And get my little top here. So to glue this together, I'm just going to put a little bit of glue. And you shouldn't need too much to hold this together. Again, this will take a couple moments for it to dry, but we're going to go ahead and assemble 3 different versions together. So hopefully our first one will be about dry by the time we are moving on and ready to decorate. So with the glue, I'm just going to hold it in place for a moment. I didn't put a ton of glue. I put a little dot of glue at the top, and it should stick together pretty easily. The more glue you put on, the longer it will take to dry. So if you put a huge amount, it just will take a little longer. Okay. And then I'm going to do the same thing at the bottom here. Just kind of hold in place and just put a little dot of glue on both ends of my little tree, and then lay my other twig across the bottom. So your tree should look something like this to start with. And then we'll do the same thing with our little trunk at the bottom. So I'm just putting a little dot of glue right in the middle, and take this last little twig and stick it right on top. Again, it's going to take a moment to let this all dry, so you just want to let it sit. And you can, again, use glue dots to do this. I'll show you how to do that one. Do it with glue dots as well. Or again, you can use hot glue if you're crafting with an adult. So I'm going to let that one just sit as we finish doing this. I'm going to kind of pull it aside. Oop. Holding it in place. I'm just going to move it out of the way so you guys can see my hand here. But you can just let yours sit in place. You don't have to move it. And that way it can just kind of dry in place. So to do another little version here, I'm just going to take my craft stick or my little wooden sticks here, little branches. And again, just kind of pull off any little pieces. Just bend your little twig in place to snap it where you need to. Sometimes it's easy to bend it back and forth. So now we've got, again, a little triangle shape, and hold on to an extra little piece to be a little trunk. And for this one, I'm going to show you guys how to do it with glue dots if you're using glue dots instead of glue. And I'm just going to put a glue dot on the end. And then I'm just going to layer these together. So I'm just going to overlap and put the glue dot right between the 2 little twigs to create my little A frame. And then take my 3rd stick that's going to go at the bottom here and put one on either end. So now you can see I've got a little glue dot here and one here. And then again, just overlap it, press down a little bit, and then it should stick together, no problem. So then if you're going to add in your little trunk, you're just gonna do the same thing here. We're going to take our little small twig and put a glue dot right at the top. And then I'm just gonna put it right on the back side here. I'm just putting it right in the middle. And the glue dot, putting just a little bit of pressure helps it make sure that it's sticking well. And there we have a little tree ready to go, looking so cute. And again, you can make this in a many different shapes too, or different sizes, I should say. So you can make it really big if you want. This one in my hand, you can see is about 6 inches or so big. So I just have these smaller twigs, but if you want to make a really big one to hang on your wall, that would be really fun too. Or this size, I think is great that they're still great little decoration, but you could even make them into an ornament or as a little gift topper. So any of those options would be really cute. Okay, so now that we have a couple little trees here ready to go, we are going to start by wrapping them with some elements like our yarn and our twine. And to do that, we're just going to take our little embroidery thread first. So I'm going to do 2 different versions here. One that's we are going to wrap it full, and then the other one, we're just going to wrap the edges in yarn instead. And so it'll be a couple different styles that you guys can pick and choose depending on what you want to do. At home is totally fine. And again, yours might look different, and that is a good thing. We like to see what you guys come up with. Okay. Okay, so to go ahead and start this, we're going to take our embroidery thread. And again, this embroidery thread is from the Kid Made Modern Arts and Crafts library. So if you've got that big library full of stuff, then you should have this in there. If you don't, then using yarn or other thread will work as well. So to start wrapping, I'm going to unravel this a little bit. I'm going to take one end here and I'm going to tie it onto one little twig. So I'm just looping it around, and then I'm going to tie a little knot here. So tie the knot, I'm just going to cross my thread over each other, creating a little circle, a little loop here, and then take that little tail, go underneath and through the loop and pull tight. So now you should have it on there. And from here, I'm going to cut a couple feet of thread off. And we're going to take our thread now that's tied to one side, and we're going to wrap it around. So I'm just wrapping all the way from one side underneath, around the back, and back on top. We're going to do this in a couple colors so you guys can see this again. Once I get to the top, I'm just going to tie a knot again. So I'm going to loop it around and pull it tight. And then do that again. So I'm going to push my little tail of my thread in and pull it out the other side. So we'll create a little loop here. I'm going to tuck that little tail into the loop and pull it tight. So now you can see you've got all this little yarn that is, or thread that's all wrapped around. I'm going to cut off these little extra bits where I tied little knots. And then we're gonna do the same thing with the green color as well. And I'm gonna cut off a couple feet here. And again, so you can see here, I just have a long piece. You can make yours smaller or bigger as well. So if you are having trouble, you cut off too much, you can tie multiple little knots. So if you need to, go ahead and just cut off a smaller piece of yarn or thread first, and then just tie it in multiple places, and you can keep going and add more if you need to. Okay, so to do this again, I'm going to hang on to one side here. I'm going to put it in and then tie it around one twig. So again, I'm going to overlap my two little sides of yarn here, creating a little loop. I'm going to tuck this little tail underneath and through the loop, and then pull both sides to pull it tight. And then we're just going to wrap it around again. And again, you can wrap it as many times as you want. If you want to make it really, really full of color, if you want to make it more sparse, that's fine too. I can see we've got all this fun twine or a little thread all wrapped around, and then we're going to tie it off again. I'm going to push my yarn through, and then where there's this little loop created, I'm just going to pull it right through that. And then do it one more time. So put my thread through, pull it out underneath the other twig. It'll create this little loop. And I'm going to pull the little tail right into the loop and then pull tight. Okay. Now that you've got your little tree covered, starting to look like a little holiday tree, which is so fun. From here, now we can add some fun little decorations. So we can take our glue dots and we can add in some little pom-poms if we want to. I'm going to do a little pom-pom topper on this one. I'm just going to take a glue dot right onto the pom-pom and put it right on top to create a little pom-pom topper. And then I'm just going to keep adding a couple more. So I'm going to put another little glue dot on the back of a pom. And you can stick it directly onto the sides of where the little tree branches are, or you can even put it into the center. So it'll stick to the thread itself. And again, we're going to make a couple different versions here. We have this style that is wrapped across, and then we're going to make another version that is wrapped just along the edges. Next, we're letting that one continue to dry for a moment. But you can make multiple too. So if you want to make a bunch like this, or you just want to make a couple, you can do a couple different styles. We also have little wooden beads here that are cute to look like little ornaments as well. So I can take a little wooden bead and stick a little glue dot on the back of it, and then glue it on. And so you can keep adding as many different little elements that you want to. I think it's kind of fun to have some along the edges and some in the middle. And I'm just going to pick this up as I put them in the middles to get it to stick to the thread and not to my surface. So that way you can get the glue dot to stick on the thread. If I push it in onto the table, it might stick to your tabletop. So just do, if you pick it up first, it's easier to pull it off your hand than off of the table. Couple more little beads on here. Starting to look like a fun little tree. And I went with a simple color scheme of just a couple colors here with green, red, and yellow. So I pulled some of my little elements out first, but again, you can add as many colors as you want to. I'm going to add one more little square bead here at the top. And there we have a whole little tree looking adorable and ready to gift. You can always make this into, just let it sit and be a cute little decoration for the holidays, or you can easily add a little topper or to hang it as well if you want to make it into an ornament. I can show you that real quick. To do something like that, I'm going to pull another little bit of thread here. And we're just going to string it through the top. So I'm going to turn this over, take my little piece of thread and push it right into the little hole at the top, pull it through the other side. And then I can just tie a little knot at the top. So I'm going to pull it so my sides are about even here. And then take it together and tie a little knot. So I'm going to create a little loop and then tuck both of those little ends in and pull it tight.
Hey, Tessa, Ella is asking, is it a good idea to use pony beads instead of pom-poms?
Yeah, you could definitely use little beads instead of pom-poms. Either one will work. Yeah, I think that's what's great is that you can mix and match a ton of different supplies. So if you don't have one, that's fine. Or you maybe want to make yours with smaller little details like those little pony beads instead of using pom-poms, which are a little bit larger. And then you can either add more, or maybe your trees are smaller, so you want to use a smaller little bead. Yes, definitely mix and match all your different supplies. Okay, so we've got one tree down here, and we can see it's all adorable, full of color. We added a little hanger at the top. You can either hang it on the wall now, or you can make it an ornament, tie it on a gift, or wrap it up and be a gift itself. Okay, so our other little one here, let's see, got it all dried, grabbing it. And if you are using craft glue and yours has not dried yet, you can keep watching and just follow along until it does dry, and then you can decorate it a little bit later. Mine looks like it's all tight up here. I'm not going to pull it apart too much, and if your glue is still a little bit wet, just keep that in mind. But to do this one, we're going to take some of our chunkier yarns here. So I have a couple of little skeins or little chunks of yarn, and I'm going to cut a couple of feet off of each. So I have a little red yarn. I'm going to take some of this chunkier, thicker yellow yarn here, find my end. And again, you can do the same thing with the embroidery thread as well. If you don't have yarn, that's fine. You could also use little strips of fabric or something like that as well, even felt. So you can definitely get creative. I'm gonna take some of this green as well. Okay, so we've got a couple different colors here, all ready to go. And to do this, I'm going to do basically the way we started the other wrapping, but instead of going across, we're just going to go up one end. So I'm going to take my yarn, put it underneath, and tie it to one side. So I'm going to create a little loop, pull that little tail underneath, and pull tight. And then double knot that. I'm going to cut off this little excess piece. And then we're going to take our yarn, and I'm going to loop it underneath, pull it through, and then go around the individual little stick. And we're just going to do this over and over and going up one whole side. And you can mix and match. You can just do little pieces if you want. You could just do a little bit and then tie a knot as well. we're not going to cover the entire twig. I think that it's fun to show the material. Even if you're using a different material like wooden craft sticks or pencils or something else to make your little tree shape, I think it's kind of fun when you can see what the base is, especially since we're using either natural or kind of like a found material. So again, I'm just wrapping it around underneath. And as I wrap it around and go around the back end, take my other hand and just kind of hold it in place and then pull that thread through. And I'm just kind of wrapping it slowly and tight next to one another to create a solid little yarn wrap. Around and around we go. So sometimes these steps take a little bit of time, but they're also very repetitive. So once you get a few done around, then it usually gets easier once you get the technique down. Okay, so I'm going to stop about here. I went a little bit more than halfway up one side. And to tie a knot again, I'm going to hold a little gap here. So I'm going to create a little loop, hold that, and then take my end, go around, and then through this. And I'll do that one more time. So again, I'm going to create a little loop, take the end of my yarn, go underneath and through, and then pull tight. And then I'm going to cut a little excess off. So now you've got the start of it going here. I think you get the drift of what we're going to do next. We're going to take our next color and do the same exact thing. So I'm going to do this one up at the top here. I'm going to go around this little top. So to do that, I'm going to, again, tie it on. And just do another little double knot. So loop, make your little loop and pull your tail through and then tie off that or cut off that little excess. Okay, we're going to do the same thing. So I'm just going to pull the yarn through and then wrap it around. And I'm going over this top. So to do that, I'm just going to wrap it and just keep going just like you are on the sides. Just wrap it around this little top portion. So again, as I'm wrapping it, I go under and then through, and then hold that new little wrap with your other hand and then pull it through. You can wrap it as many times as you want here. Now we've got it kind of going along this top and back down. You can see this little edge. I have a little bit of my twig showing, but I think that that's cute and it's fine. So if you have little gaps between yours, don't worry about that either. Okay, so again, we're gonna do a quick little knot here. So I'm gonna leave a little loop, take my yarn, go up underneath, and then pull it through that loop and pull it tight. And do that one more time. Create a little loop, go underneath and through. And then you can cut off that little extra. Look at our little tree, it's coming together. Okay, we're gonna do our third color here. And take our little green. And again, we're gonna tie it onto the twig itself. Do a little double knot. Cut off that little extra bit. And then we're going to take our yarn and wrap it around again. Just going around and around. And you guys can, again, wrap this more. I'm going to leave these gaps open so that I can see the little twig through it still. It's just the look I like. You can definitely cover it entirely. You come back around afterward if you want to paint this or add glitter to the twigs themselves. You can really decorate it in a million different ways. And I got the little trunk here. I'm going to take my yarn and go over. And then to cover up this little middle gap here, I'm just going to take and go kind of crisscross. So I'm going to take my yarn and go over and then bring it around the other direction over the trunk. So again, to do that, I'm going to take it from here and go kind of diagonally over instead of straight on top. So that way you can see here, it's kind of covering up the little back of the trunk. And then I'm going to wrap it around a little bit on the bottom of the trunk. And then we're going to tie it off. Again, create a little loop. Take the extra of your yarn, go around and then into that loop and then pull it tight. And then cut off any extra. And there we have our little yarn wrapped tree. I mean, you could definitely leave it just as is if you wanted to. I think it's super cute. And you've got all these fun little details of a cute little wooden trunk and parts of your twig still showing. Again, if you're using a different material, it still is going to look adorable. And maybe you're using a fun pattern paper straw or something else that's unique. You could definitely have pencils that line up, and that would be super cute too. So yours might look different, but doesn't mean it's not just as adorable. All right, and then I'm going to add a cute little ribbon on one side. So I'm going to take this little extra piece of green yarn and we're going to tie a little bow. So to do that, I'm going to tie a little knot and tie it onto the twig. And then I'm going to just tie a little bow, just like you would to tie your shoes. I'm going to cut off any extra bit here. Just add a fun little extra element. And next we need to add a cute little topper. And to do that, we are going to make a little star. You could definitely glue on a little pom-pom like we did the other one if you wanted to. You could do a wooden bead. You don't have to make a topper, but I'm going to make a little topper. I'm going to use some little felt here. Again, these little felt strips, you can use any color, and they come this little strip size from the Kid Made Modern Arts and Crafts Library. So I just grabbed a little strip here. I'm going to draw a little star and then cut that out. And I'm going to draw my star with a little bit different size triangles because I think that they look a little fun and rustic to match our little twigs. You could also make a different style topper. If you wanted to draw your own shape, you could draw a little heart or a different style star, maybe a little mini Christmas tree or a snowflake.
Hey, Tessa, one of our watchers has a question. She says, does the material of the yarn matter, like wool versus acrylic?
No, not at all. You can use either. So you could easily, this is just an acrylic yarn that I have here. And this chunkier yarn actually that I use, this yellow, is a blend. So it's partially acrylic and partially wool. So you could use whatever you have. Again, so there's a little star I just cut out. Again, you could do a different style star if you wanted to. I'm going to do a little more of like a star burst. So you could do a lot of little triangles. We'll just cut that out the same way. And obviously we're making 2 trees together today. You maybe haven't finished both of those by the time we're done, which is totally fine. You can keep crafting, and you can make as many as you want. And again, you can mix and match different things that we did today too. So maybe you want to do a pom-pom topper, but you wanted to wrap it like this. When we make multiples of something, it's fun just to look at different ways, but you can make it in a lot of different styles still. We've got a couple little star options here that you could make easily. That would be really cute. Again, you can add on extra details too if you wanted to glue on some little beads here. That would be cute also. But to go ahead and glue this on, I'm just going to take a little glue dot. What do we think? Which star do we want to put on our topper? More traditional star or a little star burst? What do you think, Lori? All right, we're going to do a little star burst. I just put a little glue dot on the back of this, and then I'm just going to stick it right on top. There we have our little star burst. Again, you can do any style topper that you want to make. That's fine as well. If you guys want to make this into a little ornament or a little hanger, we'll just go through that step one more time for this one as well. It's totally optional, but to do that, I'm just going to take a little extra piece of thread here. And then I'm going to go into the center and then pull it toward the top. I'm just going to take my little yarn here and just kind of squeeze it behind the little star. And then I'm going to tie a little knot here just to hold it in place on this one. And then pull both of your little strings up. They don't have to line up exactly. We'll trim this, but then to do this little knot, we're just going to create a little loop here. So you've got a little loop with my threads overlapping, and then take both of these little tails, go underneath and through the loop. And then you can pull it tight. I'm just going to trim off the extra bit here. And there we have an easy way to hang it. Again, if you wanted to make this into an ornament, or you can even just use this to hang it on your wall or tie it to a gift, any of those options would work. And there you have these adorable little stick trees. They are perfect for the holidays or for gifts. And you can make them in a ton of different styles. Again, this one we've got more wrapped all the way around, and this one is just a little bit more of a minimalist look, but you can combine the styles and make them a ton of different ways. And they've been so fun to craft with you guys today. We are going to be back next weekend with more crafting. And as we are nearing Thanksgiving, which we're so excited about, we are going to be making this adorable little pie garland. So we'll learn how to make cute little pie shapes and then stitch them all together to make a cute little garland with my personal favorite part of Thanksgiving, which is dessert. So thank you so much for crafting with us today, you guys. I hope you had fun making your holiday trees, and we will see you next week. Bye.